What's up, boys and girls? This is your boy Ben back at you with another episode of the Practice Perfect Journal. As always, this is where I go through and dissect the things that have worked out in my life, the things that I'm currently testing, have learned, or am trying to implement and see how they work to really figure out what moves the needle the most effective way possible. So that way I can take all the good stuff, distill it down for you guys, give it to you guys, and hopefully help you avoid some of the noise and the fluff that is out there. So, what's today? Sunday? Slowly, quickly creeping on Christmas. So we got 3 days? 3 days until Christmas. So I haven't actually ordered anything for my family, so that's kind of awkward. Thankfully, we celebrate when we do the main Christmas giveaway, the main Christmas later in the year, so like closer to January when people actually can come back in from out of state. So I got a little bit extra time, but not a lot. So thankfully, we do Amazon. We got Amazon Prime. So shout out to Jeff Bezos for helping make my life a little bit better. I'm trying to get this glare off my forehead, but if we do that. Alright, we're just going to move the hat down a little bit more so I'm not completely blinding you with my white ass face. But yeah, so that's where we're at today. Just wrapped up a practice session not too long ago, trying to focus on relearning some songs that I haven't played in a while and dissecting those pieces and parts that are problem areas. So playing through it once, kind of figuring out where those rough spots are at, and then smoothing them out as we go along. So that way I can take the song and actually play it through properly, and not kind of just play it through at 80%. No, we want the 100%. I want to go beat for beat. Gotta be perfect. Gotta make it perfect, or as close to perfect as we can, because we're all human, and I'm not a robot. I can't play it perfectly. So, yeah, I don't know. Sunday, feeling a little tired. Don't know why. Maybe just because I screwed up my sleep schedule the last couple days because it's the weekend and video games. So definitely went a little bit too college with the playing video games till 1 a.m. again. Even though playing till 1 a.m. back in the day was just the start. We consistently go to 3, 4 a.m. back in the day, which is always a good time. But trying to accomplish shit now, so it's not as great anymore. And yes, I can tell if you're watching, you can see my face starting to needing a little shave. It's getting a little long. Trim it down a little bit, but finished setting up my electric kit. So finally, actually plugged in all the plugs and nonsense, so that way I can actually hear the sounds of my kit. So that's helpful. Just didn't want to do it for a long time because it was kind of annoying. It's just like an extra little task I have to do, an extra thing that I have to worry about. So I kind of just use my electric kit as just a expensive practice pad. But that got me thinking as I was trying to decide on what I wanted to give you guys. And I think there's an element that is very difficult for a lot of people. I know myself, I struggled a very long time with this. And it was just this idea of like setting up your practice space and removing barriers to entry. Because we all have big aspirations. Like every night before we go to sleep, it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and this, and this. I'm gonna get like 1,000 things done tomorrow. It's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna grind it. Grind it out, and I'm gonna make so much headway towards my goals. And then you wake up the next day and you're kind of a little groggy. So then you kind of get going a little bit. Maybe you get a little bit. You practice for a little bit in the morning, and then you kind of go do whatever, have some lunch, and then sit down, start watching TV, start playing some video games, and all of a sudden, it's like 9 o'clock, or in my case, it's 1 a.m., and you've accomplished nothing that you wanted to do, and then you go to bed feeling shitty, and like, damn, why can't I actually get anything done? like I always have, I always try and plan out my day a little bit, so just kind of list out my schedule of what I want to accomplish. And some days I crush it. Some days I crush and get it all done. And some days, like yesterday, I did not. I wish I had it from yesterday. No, I went to the Star Wars movie, so I accomplished. I was like running really, really fast to get a bunch of stuff done before 2:00 when I went to go see Star Wars. And I crushed the morning. I did really well. And then as soon as I came back from Star Wars, I ate like an entire large thing of popcorn by myself. And that movie theater I went to had beer, so of course your boy's getting a beer. And yeah, came back just groggy and tired, and I proceeded to do effectively nothing, and I played more video games than I should have. But why am I bringing all this up? Again, it's like some days you got good days, some days you got bad days. But the reason why I had a successful morning was because I already had stuff set up and ready to go, right? My drum set is literally right here. I'm touching my hi-hat right now. And it's right beside me. It's like ready to go. I soundproofed my wall behind me. Again, I got the boxes and the foam behind me to try and mitigate some of the sound. So I've already taken precautions to try and set up an area that will be quieter for my neighbors, so I don't have to worry about, or I don't have to worry as much as if they can hear me. I don't have to worry about trying to set up my drums every single time I want to practice or play. Everything's just there, ready to go. All I have to do is sit down, turn on a click, and get after it. And I think that that's super important, because if you don't have a specific area just like ready to go at a moment's notice, that's going to be another thing that you have to overcome to get towards practicing. And again, practicing is the only way that you're going to get to where you want to go, right? That's the only thing that's going to move the needle towards the ultimate success that we want, as to become expert performers, if we want to become masters of our craft. So I tried to think of like all the things I could do. It's like, okay, like when I first moved in, I don't think that I practiced right away, but I knew that I had to set up the kit so that way I could just sit down and go. I needed to create a little my own practice space so I could just sit down and get after it. And if you don't have that, then again, it just becomes another barrier to entry. It becomes one of those things where you're like, oh, I want to practice, but I got to do this and this. I got to set up everything first. I got to like restring my guitar. I gotta put all new drum heads on my drums, or I have to do this, and this. When in reality, it's like, okay, it's like those are just things that are prohibiting you from getting to where you need to go. So how can you do those ahead of time, so that way when it comes time to practice, that you're good to go? So like, and maybe like that's the only thing that you do that day, right? So if you know that you have to completely tear it, so like I'm a drummer, so if you have to redo all your drum heads, like that takes forever, right? You gotta tear everything apart, you gotta take everything out, you gotta put the new drum heads on, you gotta crack them, you have to tune them, which is an art in and of itself to do that. But it takes a long time. Same thing with restringing a guitar. It's like you gotta find a quiet place, take all the old strings off, restring everything, and by the time you get done with that, it's like, okay, do you even want to play? And sometimes it's yes, but at least for myself, I know it's kind of like I just need to do something else for a while before I can come back and be like, all right, I'm ready. I'm in the mindset to practice. Like maybe I just sit down and jam with the super good sounding heads, but it just becomes harder because we have a set amount of decisions that we can make throughout a day, a set amount of actions that we can take before they just peter out. And if you spend all your time doing all these little things, these little chunks, before you actually get to the meat of your practice, it's like, oh, I gotta redo my drum heads, or restring my guitar, and I gotta tune everything. I gotta set up my practice space, and then I gotta do this, and then it's gonna be time for lunch or dinner, so then I gotta go sit down, I gotta eat, and then I gotta come back, and I gotta figure out what I want to practice, and then by then I gotta kind of figure out the plan of what I want to practice, and then I can get after it. It's like, okay, then it's like 4 hours have gone by, in that whole process, maybe 6 or the entire day. But by the time it comes to moving the needle to practice, you're already spent, right? I know this from experience because I've done this plenty of times myself. I'm sure anyone else who plays an instrument or has worked out to grow their skill in some facet, like the same way. So you have to try and figure out how you can be your own ally and really set things up in a way that you can remove as many barriers to entry as possible. So that's why I like to, again, like once you set up your practice space, you're done. That's like a one-time thing, right? You just gotta set up stuff so you can just grab it and go. But then it comes down to other barriers to entry, and we gotta focus on things like what are we gonna practice? How long are we gonna practice certain things? What I'm gonna focus on, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people get stuck on, where it's like, well, I have this unlimited amount of things I could practice. What do I need to practice? How do I consolidate it down into a set amount of things that I can do? Hearing weird noises coming from my kitchen drain. I think the neighbor is doing Lord knows what. Sorry, squirrel. Got distracted. But yeah, so it's like figuring out what you want to practice ahead of time and then scheduling it out. Being like, I want to spend like 30 minutes doing this thing. I'll spend 30 minutes doing this thing, 30 minutes doing this thing. All of a sudden, that's like an hour and a half of practice, but it can actually go by pretty quick if you do it effectively because you're at least challenging yourself to focus on something new every 30 minutes. So that way it doesn't get stale. Because I know for myself, if I practice one thing for an hour, like 30 minutes is pretty good, but then 45 minutes I kind of start getting that glazed look over my eyes. And then by an hour, it's like I'm ready to tap out. Unless I'm like really making progress on something. So I've been doing all these independence things lately. So getting all my limbs to work independently of each other so I can do cool beats. And it's always like the first 30 minutes, the first 30 to 45 minutes, it's like just struggle bus. Like, can't get it. But then that last 15 minutes, everything starts to snap into place and I start actually feeling better about myself, and then it becomes fun because all of a sudden I can play this thing that I couldn't play for like just struggled and fought for 30 minutes or 15 or 20 or however long it takes. But just I know, for at least for myself, I was practicing for multiple hours a day, just chunking it out a little bit like that, so that way you don't burn out within the first 45 minutes. You're good. But yeah, so just figuring out what you want to practice at specific times, because we're talking about removing barriers to entry, and then other things like other barriers to entry. What could be other barriers to entry that you need to worry about? So for me, it was the sound of my neighbors like hearing me. So what can I do? I gotta figure out how to mitigate the sound. So when I first moved in, I didn't have all the foam, right? I just had the boxes, just a lot of boxes. You can't see the other stack of boxes. Oh, there you go. You can see it right behind me. But I stacked those up to try and absorb some of the sound, so that way it wasn't going directly through the wall. And then I got a bookshelf here that I stacked up some books with. And then more recently, I got a couch. So slowly just trying to add a little bit of extra things to absorb some noise, so that way the super old people that live right beside me don't completely hate me. So, like, is there a sound issue that you're going to be concerned about, that you need to worry about? So for me, that was a big thing. Thankfully, there's no one below me, which was part of the reason why I got this apartment as opposed to somewhere else. So that way I didn't have to worry about the sound going directly through the floor, because it's just like the main office for the building. But they're never here when I'm here, so it doesn't matter. And even if they are here, they're not residents, so I really don't care what they think. But sex, like, so there's the sound issue that you got to worry about. So how can you mitigate sound? Like, can you soundproof your room a little bit? Can you do something to help that? Because then if you don't have to think about that, that's going to be an extra process going on in your brain. If you have to think, I got to play quieter, I can't play too loud, or my neighbor's going to hear me and yell at me, kind of thing, right? So there's that. Figuring out what you want to practice, and then just doing it. So figure out for yourself, like when you've just said you're going to practice and you didn't practice, what were the main couple things that really prohibited you from getting after it? Is it because you didn't know what to practice? Is it because you were worried about like sound? Was it because you had to set up a bunch of stuff and set up your practice space to get after it? If you can identify those things, and then subsequently remove them as barriers to entry by addressing them immediately. Like even if it's just one thing a day. If it's like, oh, I need to address the sound issue. Okay, what can I do today to do that? And then you do something to, again, like, is it getting the foam pads? I mean, those are kind of expensive. So can I get some of those? Can I just get boxes and try and absorb the sound of some boxes? I'm not a sound engineer and I don't know the proper ways. So if you have better ideas, go for it. But it's like, what are some cheap ways that I can try and reduce the sound that I'm making? What are, is it because like I just don't want to set up my practice space? Like what is it? Figure out those, address them, and then it becomes easy because then you can just be like, okay, I need to go practice. I'll sit down for 15 minutes and get after it. And then the last big barrier to entry, I think, that a lot of people face, that I faced, that one of my drumming mentors talked about was Matt Greiner, for the drummer from August Burns Red. And yeah, again, he went on tour one time, and I forget how long ago it was, but for some reason, just halfway through the tour, he just complete mental boom, right? He just shut down. His double bass was just became useless. Like he just bit it, right? And then it got into his head where he's like, oh, here comes this part I can't do. And he just kind of shut down, and they were starting to people were starting to comment on it, be like, "Oh, what happened? Like, what's going on with Matt? Like, he's like seems like he's struggling." And the vocalist and the lead guitarist came up and they're like, "Dude, like, what's going on?" And he kind of shut down for the rest of the tour. And he decided when he came home he was going to practice for like 4 hours every single day, and he was going to like fix it, and he was never going to have that happen again. He came home from tour, and there was this giant big mountain he had to climb, right? It was the big giant mountain of playing for 4 goddamn hours. So what did he do? Nothing. A week went by. He had his drums. He did set up his drums, so he had that going for him. But like a week went by. 2 weeks, I think it was like 2 weeks went by, and he hadn't even sat down once to practice. And he goes like, dude, I should have how many hours in now? And I've gotten 0. So he decided to himself, he's like, I'm just going to go and sit down and practice for 15 minutes, just kind of get loose again, and get after it. So we did that, and 15 minutes came and went, and then 30 minutes came and went, and then an hour came and went, and then 2 hours came and went, and he went from not sitting and practicing at all to crushing through 2 hours instantly. Why? Because the barrier to entry was too big. This giant big mountain of 4 hours was too much to go past. So what he had to do was he had to make it a smaller obstacle. So just a little bump to get over. Just be like, I'm just going to go play for 15 minutes. Anyone can do that, right? I have 15 minutes. That's how I just sat down and did that, because I was like, I don't want to play. I don't want to practice. I'm tired. But I was like, you know what? We're just going to play. We're just going to practice this one song that I want to play. I'm going to learn the parts that I'm bad at. And then all of a sudden, an hour and a half came and went, and it didn't feel that bad. And that's how it goes, right? You have to make this big mountain of a thing smaller. It's the same thing with working out, right? Everybody, when they want to work out, is they got to go, I have to lose 50 pounds in a month. So I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and I'm going to eat nothing but kale and celery until I'm at my ideal weight. And then they do that for 3 days, burn out, and quit. Why? Because they try and do too much too fast. They have like this big bite that they're trying to take, and they don't accomplish anything. Same thing with practicing. Same thing with learning your instrument. Same thing with achieving any new skill. We all want to become amazing instantly, so we're like, I'm going to practice for 4 hours. By the way, I'm super guilty of this too. It's like, I'm going to practice for 4 hours every single day. Or 8 hours every single day, and I'm going to grind it out, and I don't care if I hate myself. And then you do that for 2 days, and then you look at your instrument and you want to vomit, right? Don't do that. Just do 15 minutes every single day, and that's a success. Anything additional from the original 15 is just bonus, right? And that's how you build consistency, and you build the routine, and you build the habit. And then all of a sudden, you won't have to think about, I have to practice today. You just sit down and do it. And once you build that habit, then all of a sudden, you get this success loop that starts happening, and you spiral upwards. But the same thing happens the other way, right? If you're like, I'm going to practice for 8 hours every single day, and then you kind of, maybe do it once, right? But then you start spiraling down, and you spiral down, and before long, it's been 2 weeks, a month, and you've practiced twice because you have this big, huge mountain you have to climb that is 8 hours of practice. When in reality, you would have done way better just doing 15 minutes every single day and been consistent about it, because you would have gotten a couple days where you did grind for like 2, 3, 4 hours because you were feeling it. But then there are additional some days where it's just 15 minutes and that's a W. Like, that's all you need to do. But yeah, again, going back to removing barriers to entry, you just got to figure out what's stopping you. And once you figure out what's stopping you, you can crush through it, smooth out that thing that's stopping you, and just keep doing that until there's little to no barriers to entry, and you can just get after it every single day. So that's what I got for you guys today. I have a handful of things I got to do. So I got a meal prep for this week. I have to gotta do laundry, gotta clean the apartment. As you can see, there is the blanket on the couch behind me, because sometimes you gotta sleep on a couch because it feels like camping. And but yeah, handful of things. But I hope you have a fantastic day. Hope you have an even better Christmas whenever you're listening to this. Remember, guys, always practice perfect. And I will see you on the next one. Peace out.